Hey there, it's Mr. Vmore, and I wanted to show you in this video examples from our chapter 2. So chapter 2 is organizing and summarizing data. We have two sections. We organize qualitative, and then we will also organize quantitative data. So by the end of this video, you should be able to organize those data and construct bar graphs, construct pie charts, and also we're gonna construct histograms of discrete data, organize continuous data in tables, construct histograms of continuous data, draw stem and leaf plots, and identify the shape of a distribution. So let's get started. First of all, if we can remember, qualitative data is basically from the root word quality, which is just a characteristic. No numerical values here that we are measuring, or any quantity, or weighing anything, or counting. So the first section is about qualitative data. So we're going to construct frequency table, frequency distribution table, and construct bar graphs and pie charts. So in this example, the 2010 census results include a summary of the racial composition of the population. The races reported by the populations of the United States and the state of California are summarized in this data, and this data are given in millions. So as you can see, white is in the US 223.6 million, and in the state of California we got 21.5 million. And then the black or African American, we got 38.9 million in the US and 2.3 million in California, and so on. So our first task is to construct a relative frequency distribution for the races in the US. So that means we're going to use this data. So in terms of organizing it, we have two types of tables: frequency table and relative frequency table. Keep in mind, frequency table is essentially a count, and a relative frequency is a proportion relative to the whole. So since our task on A is constructing a relative frequency distribution, meaning we're going to use the formula. Let me just write a formula here. So relative frequency table is equal to the frequency over the sum of all the frequencies. So that means what we need is the frequency, so we already have that up here, and also we need sum of all frequencies. So that means we're gonna add this all up, this frequency, and we're gonna use that then as our denominator to find the relative frequency. So I have this pre-made table up here. So all we need to do is to use the frequency and divide it to the sum of all the frequencies. So we're going to use a calculator here to find quickly our total. So I'm going to add this all up. We got 223.6 plus 38.9. Remember, these are all in millions. Plus 2.9 plus 14.7 plus 0.5 and then plus 19.1 plus 9, and we have 308.7. So the total right here of the US is 308.7 million. That's for our US, and we're going to use that total to find our frequency. So for example, for the white race, the frequency is going to be 223.6, and then we're gonna use our total to get the relative frequency, which is 308.7. Alright, using our calculator, let's divide 223.6 divided by 308.7. So it should give us 0.724. I usually take 3 decimal places. So you're going to repeat the same process for Black or African American. So for the Black or African American, you're going to use 38.9 divided by your sum, which frequency, which is 308.7, and it should give you 0.1261. And I have loaded over here to make it faster. So we have all these relative frequency distribution. Now next question for B is what percentage of US residents claims 2 or more races? So you can find it here in our table. It's looking for 2 or more races, so we're referring to this one. And since this is all in decimal form, for us to be able to change the decimal form into percentage, keep in mind you're just gonna need to move your decimal point twice to the right. So if this is your decimal point, just move it 2 times to the right, and you should have 2.92%. So that's for our letter B. So we have 2.92%. For letter C, what percentage of the US residents is not Asian? So right here, Asian is in decimal form, that will be 4.75%. Moving 2 decimal places to the right, that would change it to 4.75%. So since it's asking for not Asian, so since we have 4.75 who are Asian, we just want to take this away from 100, and it should give us our answer. So you got 100% minus 4.75%, and it will give us 95.25%. If you want to use your calculator, you can, of course. So percentage of US residents that are not Asian is 95.25%. Alright, that's it. Alright, for the next question, we have to construct a frequency bar graph for races in the US. So going back to our example in the data, so we're going to be using this US right here, and we are not using the relative frequency. It says frequency bar graph. So we will be using this data right here, and I already pre-typed that in our Excel because we're going to use Excel to construct our frequency bar graph. So right here, as you can see, I typed that up here in our information and our data. So we have the races on this column, first column, and then the count, the frequency on the second column. So for us to be able to construct the frequency bar graph, all you need to do is to highlight your data and then choose insert, and then you'll see under the insert column or bar chart. So click that. You can choose 2D column, 3D. It's up to you whether you want to be fancy or not. You can choose which model it is. I'm going to choose 2D column up here, and I'm going to change the title to races in the US. Oops, let me do it again. So I'm going to change the title to races in the US. Races in the US. Alright, so right here, that's going to be our frequency distribution bar graph. So if you want to just cut paste, so just highlight and then copy. If you want to copy it to our presentation, you can. And let me see if that's going to work here. Paste it here. So there we go. So this is our frequency bar graph. There you go. And then for constructing a relative frequency, so it's relative frequency, so it's talking about the percentage. So I'm going to go back to our Excel. Again, I already pre-typed that in our Excel, in my Excel. So this is the relative frequency, and all I need to do is the same process. So highlight the data that you want to show your bar graph. So click, I'm going to use 2D again. Of course we're going to have the same graph, so but this time on the left side, the vertical axis is going to be the percentage or the decimal form. So I'm going to change my title to races in the US. Alright, same thing. I'm going to copy this graph to my presentation and paste it. You should have it here. So you see the difference on the for the frequency bar graph is just a count. So on the vertical axis we have the number, and then the races on the horizontal. And for the relative frequency bar graph, we have on the vertical, we are using the percentages or the decimal form, and then on the horizontal axis we have the categories, the races. And letter F, we are constructing pie chart. So we're going to go to our pie chart for races in the US. So I'm just going to go to our Excel. I'm going to use the frequency distribution. Doesn't matter. So I'm going to highlight it and choose insert. And then I think we have here pie chart also. So right here, the pie chart, choose pie chart. I'm going to use 2D pie chart. And then just going to move it here. Change the title to races in the US. And then just copy paste it to my presentation. And there we go. So it's labeled per color, the races in the US. There you go. That's section 2.1, which is creating frequency, organizing your qualitative data, and then creating frequency and relative frequency bar graphs and pie chart. Alright, our next example is for section 2.2. So we will have an example of quantitative data. And remember, quantitative data are numbers, measurements, or counts. So we will organize them into tables, create a histogram and other popular displays such as stem and leaf plot. And also we will use the data and see the shape of the distribution. So let's talk about this example first. So the following data represent the number of live births in the United States in 2012 for women 15 to 49 years of age. So as you can see in the table, we already have classes. For 15 to 19 years old, we have 10,908 live births. And then 20 to 24 years old, you got 916,811, and so on. So our first task is to determine the number of classes. So the number of classes are this on the first column. So we will have, we'll just all into this countdown. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we got 8 classes on this data. And then next is determine the class limits. So for us to be able to determine the class limits, just use each of the classes. So the first one is 15 to 19, then 20 to 24, next is 25 to 29, and so on and so forth, up to 50 to 54. And then letter C, determine the class width. So the class width, remember, is the difference between consecutive lower class limits. So lower class limits are, in the first class is 15, and then the second class lower limit is 20. So all we need to do is to determine their differences. So for example, we got 20 minus 15, it gives us 5. That's going to be our class width. If you pick 30 and then subtract it to 25, it will give you also 5. So the class width is equal to 5. Now letter D, to construct a relative frequency distribution. So from our previous example, it's a relative frequency distribution, so that means we're gonna have to find the total of our data up here, find the total, and then we're going to use that to divide in our each of the frequency. So if you want to grab your calculator and add this all up, so 10,908 plus 916 1,811, just add them all up and it will end up having the total is, I'm going to put here, total is 3,654,689. So that's your total. So you're going to use this total to get the relative frequency distribution. So for ages 15 to 19, you will use 10,908 divided by your total, which is 3,654,689. And I'm going to grab my calculator here to show you. So for ages 15 to 19, remember we have 10,908 and divided by the total, which is 3,654,689, and it should give us 0.0029, or you can round it up to 0.0030. And same thing for ages 20 to 24, you'll use, let me just write it down just in case you're gonna go back and rewatch this video. So for 15 to 24, you're gonna divide this 916. So I'm just gonna use this space right here. I'm just bring this down a little bit. So for 15 to 24, I will use the relative frequency is equal to 916,811 over the total, which is 3,654,689, and it should give us approximately 0.2509. So you're going to repeat the same process for 25 to 29. So you'll use on the top, you'll use 1,123,900 divided by your total, which is 3,654,689, and you should have this decimal. So you're going to repeat the same process up to 50 to 54 age range, and you should have this decimal form. Now for letter E, constructing a frequency histogram. So we're going to use our Excel again to construct it. So again, I typed our data in our Excel, and same procedure. I'm going to highlight the data that I would like to construct the histogram. So frequency distribution, I'm using that, not the relative frequency. So I'm going to choose insert and then choose 2D. So I wrote here, if you notice, I wrote here the steps, and then all I need to do, since it looks like a bar graph, but the difference between bar graph and histogram, the bars should be right next to each other because we are talking about the ranges. So for us to be able to move all these right next to each other, so click one of the bar graph or the rectangle and then right click and choose format data series and choose your gap width to 0, and then it should make our bar graph or each rectangle the graph right next to each other. Then you can outline the bars and change colors of each bars if you want. You can click anywhere on the chart and use the format dialog boxes, so it's up to you. So but right here I'm just gonna use this. All right, if you want to change the title, you can. I think I'm gonna keep the title. I'm gonna change the title to number of live births by age of mother. So I'm going to put number of live births. Number of live births. It's over there by age of mother. Okay, and then I'm just going to copy paste that to my presentation, and that's going to be our frequency histogram. And then this one, construct a relative frequency histogram. So this one, we're going to use the relative frequency, the decimal form of our data. So I'm going to use Excel, and I already pre-type our data in our Excel. So same process, highlight it, insert. I'm going to choose 2D, and then choose one of the bar graph, and choose, right click it, and then format data series, and change our gap width to 0, and it should be right next to each other. The same title. I'm going to change this to number of live births by age of mother. And then I'm just going to copy paste it to my presentation. And one of the things that I want to point out here, the difference between bar graph and histograms. Histograms, the rectangles should be right next to one another. All right. So letter G, what percent of live births were to mothers 50 to 54 years of age? So we're talking about this class, which is 50 to 54, and changing this to the percent. Just move your decimal point to the right twice, so I should have 0.02%. Alright, so let's take another example. The following data represent the graduation rate for a random sample of 60 colleges and universities in the United States. The data is from the www.payscale.com. So as you can see, this data, here's an important information with a class, with a first class having lower class limit of 20 and a class width of 10. So let's construct a frequency distribution table. So we can the lower class limit is 20 and class width is 10. So that means we can start with 20 and then add 10 to identify the next lower class limit. So 20 plus 10 is 30, plus 10 is 40, plus 10 is 50, and so on and so forth. So we will have 70, 80, 90 as our lower class, the last lower class limit. And since the class width is 10, and make sure we are not overlapping, so I'm going to start with the 20 to 29, and the next one is 30 to 39, 39 to then 40 to 49, and 50 to 59, 60 to 69, 70 to 79, 80 to 89, and 90 to 99. The frequency, you're going to start counting the frequency. So 20 to 29, you're going to start crossing that out. So I'm going to find, so I got 1 here in the first column, 20, 29. I'm looking for that number between 20 to 29. So I got 2, 3, I only have 3. So this is already pre-loaded to you. So the frequency of the first class, which is 20 to 29, is 3, 30 to 39 is 9. But you're going to keep doing the same process to find the frequency. That's your letter A, to construct a frequency distribution. Alright, next question, construct a relative frequency distribution. Again, the formula is the number of frequency divided by the total. So all you need to do is to, I think we already have the frequency, and then we also need to find the total of our frequency. So you can use your calculator and add them all up, and it will add up to 60. So that's our total. So we're going to use this to find the relative frequency. So for the age range, or for the graduation rate 20 to 29, we have we got 3 out of 60. It should give us 0.05. And then you're going to do the same process, and you should have all these decimal values. Alright, so construct a frequency histogram of the data. So the same process. Let's go, let's see if I already typed this in our, oh, there we go. So frequency distribution. So highlight your data, insert, and then choose 2D. So it's asking for a histogram. So I'm going to click one of the bars and right click, format data series, and change my gap width to 0, and that should be my frequency table. So again, if you want to change the title, you can change it. Change title to graduation rate of US college or university. So that's one good name on it. So I'm gonna just copy paste it. So frequency histogram, and then for relative frequency histogram, I'm gonna go back to my Excel. Relative frequency distribution, I'm gonna highlight it and insert, choose 2D, and then right click one of the bar graphs and change the gap width to 0. Then you want to change the chart title, which is the same title that we have. If you want to use graduation rate of US colleges or university, you can do that. So copy it and paste it here, so you can put that in our relative frequency data histogram. Relative frequency histogram. Alright, next, the title of the shape, describe the shape of the distribution. So the shape of distribution, since the tail to the right of the peak, so the tail to the right of the peak is longer than the tail to the left of the peak. So this is longer going to the right, so that means this is skewed right. Alright, now if you want to construct the stem leaf plot, we can, since the lower value is, we started with a 2, so we're gonna have to use those for our stem. So we can do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's gonna be our stem. And our leaf, we have 24, 28, and 29. So we have here 24, we have the 28, and the 29. For 3, stem 3, we have 34. I would have, so I'm going to find 34 here. So 34. We also have 35. I think I saw 35 here. And that's one. I think also another, I saw another 35 right there. Then 36. We also have 37, 38, 39. We have 3 39s. And you get the idea. So that's how stem and leaf plot data from problem 1. And then the legend is 2, stem 2, leaf 4 represents 24. Alright? So there you have it. That's section 2.1, 2.2, or in short, chapter 2. I hope you learned something. Thank you for watching.